My name is Anjali. I'm an art student studying painting at MICA. These paintings came out of an oil painting class. The assignment was to depict the internal self and the external self. These are both oil paintings. When I did them, I didn't have a whole lot of experience in oil, so I just used the oil paint straight from the tube. Now, with more experience through school, I know that I need to use mediums, different techniques, different mark making, and I think this is really representative of my growth as a blooming student. I think I was inspired by some works by James Jean I was looking at and some other Baroque paintings. When I was little, I lived in Indonesia. We had this really beautiful koi pond in our backyard, and I would love to run around there and just look at the fish. And there's this one huge fish we had named Jumbo. He was huge. I always loved having my dad go in there and catch him, and he'd always wrestle with him. When I was little, that's how big the fish was to me. That's who I was. Indian girls are seen as a lower level as Indian men. Even when I would go to family weddings, there would be all these relatives, and they would all surround my brother. They would say, "Oh, hi, how are you?" And then just go straight to my brother and ask him, "How's school doing? How's your life? Where do you think you're going to go to school?" And they did not care about me or what I had to say. I would just mind my own business. They weren't interested in me at all because I was a girl.
I really like that in these two paintings. There's a very dramatic contrast between the two figures, the internal and the external selves. They could not be more different from each other. Not just in terms of the actual narrative that's happening, like the gestures that the figures are taking on, but I also think stylistically, the way you've painted them is actually quite different. Because when I look at the koi fish, that piece has this really intense, highly saturated orange and red that's in the fish. And so that alone just seems much more dramatic and a lot more gestural and full of movement. But also the way that your face is tilted backwards very dramatically. There's that highlight that's coming across the face. That alone, I think, has just a lot of action to it. The figure on the left-hand side, though, she's so stiff by comparison. I mean, she almost feels, to me, almost more like a statue than a person, which I think is so appropriate for what you described. I just noticed this, and I've been looking at these pieces for a while. You are wearing a fish necklace.
Yes, I am.
In the painting on the left. So what's the significance of that?
What it was mostly to tie these two in together. That summer, my friend had given me a fish necklace, which I loved because it was kind of moved like this.
Uh-huh.
I was like, hey, this should be in the painting because in the other painting there's a fish. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like it was a good connection as wearing it around your neck and then holding it in your hands.
It's not a real fish.
Yeah.
It's an actual designed piece of jewelry. Mm-hmm. On the right-hand side panel, the fish is this gigantic, out-of-control beast. That little fish necklace that you have is very important as far as really connecting the two together.
I really think it starts the dialogue between the two paintings.
There's some parts of the painting that I think are really accomplished and seem very rich and very vibrant. That dramatic light that's on the face looks so luminous and bright. I really respond to that. The only thing is, though, towards the bottom of both paintings, this area down here, to me, looks totally unfinished. Did you want it to look incomplete, or did you really never come back?
I really tried hard to figure out what was necessary in the piece versus what was unnecessary. Mm-hmm. And I really feel like for both pieces, the face and the hands were both necessary and essential to making this piece work.
You don't necessarily want to call so much attention to an area that's not critical, because when I look at this painting, I mean, really, it's the stance of the figure, it's the face, it's the necklace, it's the hands. This isn't going to make or break your piece. However, this to me screams, I didn't finish. The hands are actually one of my favorite parts of this painting. I actually like the hands more than I like the face, because the face, I think, is maybe a little bit overdone for me. I don't think it has the freshness.
No, I completely agree about the face. It's overworked.
I love the hands because they have such a beautiful gracefulness to them. And your painting technique, it's really efficient. I mean, I can really break apart individual strokes, even over here in the elbow where I can see this stroke and then that white highlight and then this stroke going upwards. This is not finished to the degree that the face is finished. Mm-hmm. However, This to me is beautifully suggested. I like that the backgrounds are really simple because I think it's clear that these paintings are about the figures. I just wonder if maybe the backgrounds, if they were more different in terms of color, one was a cool color, one was a warm color, that maybe that would have a little bit more difference, because for me right now, it's like an overdose of that background color. Did you mix your blacks for these?
Yes.
So what were you using to mix the black?
I was using burnt umber and cobalt blue.
I think it would be good for you to get a warm color in there. For example, a really good warm color to use would be alizarin crimson. I mean, alizarin crimson's a little bit weird because I think of it as a cool, warm color, like if that makes any sense. The blue is great to have, but sometimes, did you say it was raw umber?
Burnt
Umber. See, the burnt umber is like really dull. And the thing is, the alizarin crimson, I love alizarin crimson because to me it's like painting with blood. It's just really, really intense of a red.
Yeah.
And so I can imagine that if you wanted to keep this background, this like darkish, bluish green color, if you had alizarin crimson in the hair, wow, that hair would really jump out. Right now, your hair is just sinking into the background. It's not really popping out. You have a couple of brown highlights in here, but they're minimal and they don't jump out as much as I'd like them to. The images right now, to me, they feel more iconic than they do personal. Right now, the personal is more interesting because the iconic, I think, what happens sometimes is the image gets watered down because it's trying to be a symbol for something. And I just would love to see you make these more personal. I'd love to see you show your prying relatives who are bothering or maybe not bothering you about things and not pestering you about things. And I'd love to see maybe the house that you grew up in. Give a little bit more visual to the narrative and just don't be afraid to embrace that. In fact, I think one way to explore that would be to make the complete opposite version of this painting. Imagine if you put every single visual that was a part of both of those stories into both these paintings. So you paint the wedding, you paint your brother, you paint all your members of your family. Here you have the house you grew in, you have Indonesia, you have your mother, your father, you have everybody in there.
Yeah.
Almost like a Hieronymus Bosch type of version of your family stories. The stories that you have embedded in these portraits, I think, are wonderful. I love that they stretch so deep into your culture, into your family, into your relationships with all of your family members.